Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ins and outs of functional behavior assessment. I am Sarah Gary, along with Megan Johnson and Katie Cooper. We are three of the district behavior analysts. We are excited and eager to jump in, dig around, become detectives, and really have a good conversation and learning session around the FBA process. If you could right now, please refer to the FBA training document that was sent to you. I think this is just a nice guideline of events. You can see at the top there, starting October 28th through November 10th, you have the opportunity to access the video trainings at your own pace. On November 11th from 8:30 to 9:30, we will have a Zoom session that will be a targeted discussion and a Q&A session. And then from November 11th through November 20th, you will have an opportunity to partner up with a BA and really use them as a resource and guide for any kind of individualized remote problem solving around FBAs. Maybe you're in the middle of one, maybe you recently completed one, or even one from last year. If you don't have a current one, that's okay. Please, again, I just encourage you to use this consultation um, to your own advantage and really just dig deep with any questions or concerns you may have about FBAs. If you can also open up the FBA training note catcher, feel free to either print it, make a copy of it on your desktop and type in it, whatever mode you want to use it in. Please just note that we are going to ask you to turn that into us when you are done with the video training. As well, please bring that note catcher to the November 11th Zoom discussion just to help guide and help you remember to any of your wonderings or questions or thought processes you had during the training. Okay. And please feel free anytime during this video session to pause, take a break. Again, you can watch and listen at your own leisure, but pause, take notes, use that note catcher to your advantage. So I'm going to review our learning goal and our learning objectives. Our big goal is to really look at the type of data that we're going to be collecting during an FBA. And really being aware and conscious of having an objective lens when you are observing your student. Okay, so we talk about indirect and direct data. The indirect data is going to include things such as interviews. So interviewing the student if that's appropriate, interviewing parents, teachers, any other support providers, adults working with that student. As well as another indirect piece would be what we call like a reinforcement assessment or survey. Again, you can fill one of those out if you know the student well. You can have a teacher fill it out. Definitely have parents fill one out so you have their perspective as well. But we want to have some information around the student's preferences, interests, things like that. Okay, so those are your indirect data pieces. Your direct observational data is going to include information about what we call antecedents, behavior, and consequence, or ABCs. Again, think about this objective lens that you should be wearing when you are observing your student. You are recording data that you see. What are the antecedents? What's occurring in the environment right before the problem behavior? What does the problem behavior look like? You're going to learn to operationally define those problem behaviors. And then what's happening immediately after the problem behavior in the environment? That's the consequence. Okay, so this direct data collection of ABCs is critical in helping us determine function of problem behaviors. The learning objectives include operationally defining problem behaviors, so definitions are objective, clear, and complete. You will have opportunities to practice writing operational definitions of behaviors. Again, we want to remove the subjectivity and really think about behaviors again through that objective lens. Another learning objective, I can understand the relationship between the phases described in the FBA checklist to investigate my questions about why the problem behavior continues to occur. The FBA checklist is something that we've created and offered as a resource and support when you're working through this FBA process. It's not necessarily a number 1, 2, 3 kind of checklist. It's more of a guide where you will be flowing in and out of different steps as you're assessing and implementing and assessing. So we'll talk more about using that. Another learning objective, I can be an active observer by using the helpful resources within that FBA checklist. Again, knowing when and how to use those resources within the FBA checklist will be to your advantage. And lastly, I can analyze the collected data in order to develop a hypothesis of the function of a student's behavior. This part of the FBA, I personally think, is the most difficult. It can be tricky to analyze all of this data that we've collected, especially the ABCs. Going through each one of those recorded ABCs or incidences of behavior and being able to pull apart the pieces to determine what that function was in that moment for that student. It's those pieces that's really going to help us drive the FBA summary statement that ultimately is going to drive our behavior plan. What is a functional behavior assessment? It's a collaborative process that identifies specific target behaviors, the function of those behaviors, and the factors that maintain the behavior that's ultimately interfering with educational progress and their relationships. So, we're synthesizing a ton of information in order to ultimately hypothesize what the function or functions of the student's problem behavior are. One of the challenges is that this work is based on observation, which can be wrought with subjectivity if we aren't careful. We are charged to optimize our objectivity in our work in order to maximize the reliability of our hypotheses. Really, we are detectives meant to determine under what conditions a behavior is most likely to occur and what happens in the environment as a result of those behaviors. Why do I need an FBA? It's not just a hoop to jump through. It's not just to collect data for the fun of it. It's a process that identifies specific target behaviors. It identifies the purpose of those behaviors and the factors that maintain those behaviors that are interfering, again, with the child's learning or relationships. It's an evidence based technology that is the basis of a behavior plan. And without the FBA, we don't have the data or information to create a behavior plan. So ultimately, we should never just be jumping to a behavior plan. There should always be an FBA with the behavior plan. The FBA data collection tells us the hypothesized functions, why these problem behaviors are occurring. If we don't know that, how are we going to create a behavior plan? So moving forward, what we need to accomplish with the behavior plan is aligning replacement behaviors with the same function as the problem behaviors. Once those skills are identified, written into a behavior plan, then our strategies are written around how we're going to teach those, how we're going to be proactive, how we're going to reinforce the new replacement behaviors, right? So, again, going back to the FBA, we have to collect the data, we have to be able to analyze the data to determine the function of the problem behaviors so that we can write a functionally aligned behavior intervention plan.